Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something that is deeply fascinating, heavily researched, and honestly profoundly relatable. We're unpacking the psychology of why we can't trust again after being betrayed. Now, look, if you're tuning into this, there's a really good chance you know exactly what I mean when I talk about a very specific kind of exhaustion. It's this deep, bone-level tiredness that only people who have been profoundly betrayed really get. And here's the interesting thing our sources point out. It's actually not the pain of the betrayal itself that exhausts you the most. I mean, that pain eventually fades, right? It's what comes after. It's the part literally no one warns you about. It's that incredibly confusing experience of finding someone new, a partner, a friend, who treats you with absolute kindness, consistency, and honesty, and yet, you just can't relax. You're basically just waiting for the mask to slip. That perfectly captures this quiet, lingering anxiety we're talking about. You meet someone perfectly good. They're consistent. They actually show up when they say they will. And yet some quiet, hyper-vigilant part of you is just sitting there in the dark, waiting. You're fully expecting this perfectly good person to just suddenly reveal a darker, untrustworthy side. And let me tell you, it is incredibly draining to live this way, constantly scanning a totally peaceful room for a fire that hasn't even started. So you inevitably end up asking yourself, why can't I just let this good thing be good? And you might even be directing this at yourself with a ton of self-blame, right? Wondering if you're just, too damaged for love or permanently broken. Well, I want to stop you right there and assure you right off the bat, based directly on the psychological research we're unpacking today, you are not imagining things, and you are definitely not broken. What you're experiencing, it's not a character flaw, it's a highly specific, deeply ingrained biological mechanism. And honestly, once you understand the why behind it, it changes everything.
All right, so let's get into section 1. Your brain on high alert.
To really grasp what's happening to you, we have to look at how your brain actually works after a betrayal. Because logically, you know your new partner or friend hasn't done anything wrong. But when you're betrayed by someone you trusted, your brain doesn't just log it as a one-time isolated event. It builds a pattern. It starts logging everything: the tone of voice they used, a slight delay in a text message, just a fleeting moment of emotional distance. And it records all of that as a warning sign to protect you in the future. This leads to what trauma psychology calls hypervigilance. Basically, it's a state where your nervous system just stays stuck on high alert. You're constantly scanning for danger, even when you are in an objectively, totally safe situation. So, your inability to relax, it's actually a known, survival-based program. It's literally just your nervous system being incredibly loyal to a lesson it learned the hard way. Let's look at how this actually plays out in everyday life, because our sources highlight these incredibly common, seemingly irrational behaviors. Notice if any of these hit a little too close to home. Rereading texts for some hidden negative meaning. Feeling this massive, sudden spike of anxiety just because they took, 20 minutes longer to text back than usual? Or how about testing new partners, whether you even realize you're doing it or not, just to see if they're gonna eventually fail you like the last person did? Or simply struggling to relax during genuinely, objectively good moments. Listen, none of this is because you distrust this new person. It's just your nervous system running an outdated survival program. And this really illustrates the core tragedy of hypervigilance. See, there's a massive difference between an actual threat, like real, present danger, and a familiar feeling, which is really just the echo of a past wound. But the tragic irony here is that your nervous system seriously struggles to tell them apart. So when someone pulls away because they're just, tired after a super long day at work, which is a familiar feeling, your body reacts exactly as it would if they were pulling away because they were secretly betraying you, which would be an actual threat. You end up bracing for impact from people who are absolutely never going to crash into you. Which brings us to a really fascinating paradox. Section 2. Why safety feels dangerous. You'd think that after a really toxic or bad relationship, a good one would instantly feel like a breath of fresh air, right? Like you just sink into it with total relief. But for someone whose trust has been completely shattered, it isn't always the bad moments that trigger fear. It's actually the genuinely good ones. So why does calm actually trigger fear? Why does genuine safety and peace feel so unbelievably unsettling? Well, when you've only ever known relationships with hidden cracks and sudden betrayals, actual, solid safety, that's foreign territory. And because it's unfamiliar, it feels highly suspicious. This is exactly why people sometimes find themselves unconsciously sabotaging relationships that are actually going incredibly well. You pick a fight, you pull away, or you just assume the other shoe is about to drop. It's not because you don't want the relationship to work, it's because peace itself hasn't actually been proven safe to your body yet. Here is the absolute emotional core of this entire phenomenon. The nervous system associates calm with the quiet before the storm.
I just want you to sit with that for a second. In your past, peace wasn't actually peace. Peace was just the blind side waiting to happen. Calm was literally just the preceding chapter to a betrayal. So now, when things are nice and calm, your brain rings a massive alarm bell, basically screaming at you to get ready because the storm must be right behind it.
But the good news is, you don't have to live there forever. Section 3, 3 shifts to rebuild trust.
Okay, so we've talked about the problem, the mental wiring, the biology of why you feel this way. Now let's pivot to the resolution. How do you actually go about retraining your nervous system without punishing a totally new, safe partner for the crimes of someone from your past? Healing isn't just about finding a trustworthy person. It's about slowly teaching your body how to actually receive them. The sources we're looking at outline 3 concrete steps to actively rebuild that trust and update your nervous system's threat radar over time. They are separate past from present, communicate the fear, and allow evidence to count. Let's break each of these down real quick.
The very first shift is to separate past from present. Whenever that anxiety flares up, say they take too long to text back and your chest instantly gets tight, the goal isn't to suppress the fear. The goal is to consciously notice it and name it in real time. You literally say to yourself, okay, this is an old alarm, not new evidence. You are intentionally separating the ghost of your past from the very real person standing in front of you in the present. You acknowledge the alarm is ringing loud and clear, but you recognize there's no actual fire.
The second shift is absolutely crucial. Talk it out, don't act it out. When that old fear grips you, your first instinct is usually to test your partner, to just silently withdraw, or to start building up resentment. Instead, you have to communicate the fear. Saying to a safe partner something like, "Hey, I'm feeling really anxious right now, and I know for a fact it is not about you," does absolute wonders for rebuilding trust. Because what it does is it invites them in as an ally against the trauma, rather than treating them as the enemy. And the third shift is to allow evidence to count. And listen, it only ever happens one piece at a time. Every single time a new person responds to your anxiety with patience instead of punishment, that is one piece of data. Every time they stay when you fully expect them to leave, that is one piece of data. Real trust isn't rebuilt by making some massive, risky decision to just trust again. It doesn't work like that. It's rebuilt slowly, accumulating exactly one piece of consistent evidence at a time.
And that leads us to Section 4, healing takes time.
If you take literally nothing else away from this explainer, please know that this process is allowed to be slow. If you're the one lying awake at night, super frustrated with yourself for not being over it yet, you really need to extend some grace to your own nervous system. The goal was never to force yourself to just trust blindly again. The goal is to build a new, highly accurate radar. Trust is rebuilt in layers. People always say time heals all wounds, right? But the psychological sources clarify that it's not actually the ticking of the clock that heals you. Time only matters because time is the required medium for enough safe, consistent evidence to finally accumulate. Your body needs a prolonged period of witnessing actual safety before it will finally agree to put its weapons down.
So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Are you ready to build a new, more accurate radar? Remember, trust isn't something you either miraculously have or permanently lack. It is constructed. If everything we've looked at today describes what you've been going through, I want you to know you are not too much and you definitely aren't doing it wrong. You are healing, even on those days when it feels like you are standing perfectly still. Be patient with the parts of yourself that are still learning it is finally safe to stay. Thanks so much for diving into this explainer with me, and we'll see you on the next one.
The pain, washing away the sun and rain, lifting lives, restoring dreams, more than just what giving means. Through every child, through every soul, you can see the broken home. Hope is rising strong and real in the power